Hey, welcome back to When Bad Things Happen to Good People, a podcast about censorship and the arts. I am your humble narrator, Todd Sullivan. With me is my horror show droog, Oren Barter. And we are about to finish up our look at A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. I can't believe we're done this book already. It seems nuts.
It does seem really fast, yeah.
After spending 2 months on our first book, because we were doing it every 2 weeks and because there were delays and because it was a longer book, these last two ones, The Handmaid's Tale and this one, A Clockwork Orange, just seem to have flown by.
Well, how many pieces did we break The Handmaid's Tale into? 4 or 5?
No, it was only 4, I think.
4, yeah. So this one...
And then this one was 3.
3.
So even fewer episodes.
Yeah.
Although we'll have 4 after we do the film.
Yeah.
But it just seems weird to not even be a month into 2021 and we're done our first book. And I'm not even 100% sure yet what we're going to do next. But we'll have it figured out soon, I guess. How you been this week?
Not too bad. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, things have calmed down a little bit at work.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. I like how I'm just using this as an audio blog. It's yeah, my work week's been pretty stressful, but this one wasn't too bad.
It's like your weekly therapy session.
It's well, I don't hate my father quite as much today as I usually do.
Tell me about your mother.
Yeah, how about you?
Nothing really to report, I don't think. It's been a slow week.
Well, those are not always a bad thing.
They're not, and I'm not complaining. I am currently unemployed, so I have been maybe spending a little bit too much time in relaxation mode rather than, looking for work and being a productive member of society mode. But I think it's hard coming out of everything kind of grinds to a halt over the holidays. Mm-hmm. Whether you're working or not, I think to some extent, and it's especially when you don't have any responsibilities to dive right back into. Right. It can be easy to just kind of maintain that kind of slothful mindset that kind of creeps in, especially between Christmas and New Year's, where it's just the week from hell that lasts forever, but also you can never get anything done.
And then also, during a pandemic, it's I could get up and go do something, but that would be unsafe. So I'm going to be a hero, and I'm going to stay home. Yeah.
That's what I'll tell myself from now on. When I don't get out of bed until noon, it's because I'm being a hero and not tempting myself to go outdoors.
Yeah, those from 8 a.m. to noon when everybody else is out infecting each other.
I'm home safe.
You're being safe.
I'm doing my part. Before we dive in, are you drinking anything tonight?
Yes, my lovely girlfriend was kind enough to go and get me a nut brown ale from Spinnaker's. I think I've had this on here before. It's freaking delicious, though.
Yeah, it does sound like something you've mentioned before.
You sound like something I've mentioned before.
I am probably someone you've mentioned before. I'm drinking a new one for me right now. It's Craft Stout from Parallel 49.
Okay.
And it is apparently nitrogenated.
Wait. Parallel 49, I thought they made coffee.
Maybe. They definitely make beer as well.
Oh, okay, cool. Sorry, I cut you off.
I don't know if they make coffee. I can't commit to that. But,
well, they do. They definitely make coffee.
Yeah. But it is nitrogenated. I don't know what that means. But it's actually really a lot like Guinness.
Yeah, Guinness is nitrogen as well instead of CO2.
Okay, that explains that. It gives it a thicker, I guess, frothier.
I think it's heavy. I think nitrogen's heavier than air. Or no, I guess
that
it
would make
be.
sense.
No, that wouldn't make sense.
I don't
know. Nah, that's not right. I'm not a chemist. Don't listen to me.
That would be would that be a chemistry or would that be physics?
I think both. I think sometimes they overlap. But again, I'm not a teacher, so I don't know.
You don't know. And after my Craft Stout, which is about halfway done. Mm-hmm. I have, from Parallel 49, I have the Salty Scot, which is a sea-salted caramel Scotch ale.
Okay, I've had that one. How did I not make that connection between Parallel 49 Brewing and Parallel 49 Coffee before?
I don't know.
But I have had that one. That's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this book.
Okay.
So we're covering part 3, the final 7 chapters today, and there's a couple of things I wanted to note before we got into the details about the book. And these are things that sort of came to me as a result of listening to the podcast last week when I was editing it.
Okay.
I wanted to make note, because I was talking about how we are getting close to feeling some degree of sympathy or empathy with Alex. And then I thought, like, I don't know the exact difference between those words, so I thought I'd look it up. So sympathy is feelings of pity and sorrow for someone else's misfortune.
Okay.
And I don't think I am sympathetic towards Alex. But empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another.
Right.
So I think I could be empathetic towards him, at least as of the start of part 3.
Okay.
The other thing I was thinking about, in regards to, like, the references to what seemed to be, like, Nazi propaganda films and Japanese torture films from, like, World War II, it got me thinking about the fact that this book was written in 1962 and how that's only, like, 20 years after World War II.
Yeah.
And so it's coming from a place
It's
where...
Pretty fresh.
Pretty fresh.
Yeah.
And I think the question in a lot of people's minds coming out of World War II is, like, what could drive people to behave like that? What could make someone do these kinds of horrible things that normal people wouldn't think they would be able to do? And I almost feel like this book, in a way, is answering the opposite question. Like, if someone can go down a certain set of paths to end up doing evil things, like, what is the path that you could force someone to do good things? I don't know if that was on Burgess's mind or not. It's just sort of a connection that I made thinking about the fact that this is not far removed from the atrocities of World War II.
Okay. And he did write this when he was in Europe, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I really made the connection. I didn't think he was really making a statement about the war. I think that might have just been imagery that was, available, accessible to the audience, right? And still is to this day, which is a testament to how horrific that stuff was. But I think it was more just a moral kind of weird little experiment that he did, this book. I think I don't know if he was really trying to answer any questions or I just feel like he was just playing with some ideas and just bringing up some points about, the penal system and about right and wrong and about religion. Like, he really does cover a lot of topics in this book. And maybe, and maybe war was one of them as well. And I just didn't pick up on that one.
Well, not so much war. I don't think it's war so much as, like I said, it's the idea of, like, it's the opposite of how did someone become evil. It's how do we make someone good.
Right.
All right. So chapter 1 of part 3, we once again open with the familiar words. What's it going to be then?
Yeah. I didn't even notice that until you pointed it out.
Oh, that it was how that each chapter started?
Yeah. Or how each section started, yeah.
Yeah, it's usually in there a few times too.
It's in this last one a lot. Especially like the first part of this third part, yeah.
Yeah. So Alex is now free and he's trying to figure out what he's going to do with his first day on the street. So he goes and gets some breakfast. Heads to this like little diner, and as he goes in, I think he noticed that there's a few people who are kind of mistreating the waitresses a little bit, and even just watching them do that makes him a little ill. Mm-hmm. So he's very polite. He sits down and very politely orders, I think, like toast and jam and chai. And then after breakfast, he heads back to his parents' house, where he's going to surprise them with the fact that he's out on the street again.
Thinking they're going to be so happy to see their little Alex.
Yeah, but they've got a surprise for him. They've rented out his room to
Joe.
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 Hey, Joe, what do you know? And Joe, like, Alex has still got a key to his house. So he, like, you know, pops the lock open and comes on in. And Joe is like, who's this? What are you doing here? Get outside and knock, you ingrate. And, of course, Alex's mother's first thought is that he's broken out of prison.
Right, yeah.
Because he did not take any time to, like, alert his family that he was coming. And I don't think, you know, he left his family with the most positive impression of who he was.
Yeah.
At the end of part one. So yeah, we find out that Joe has been leasing or renting Alex's room. Alex's room is now, like, all of his stuff is gone. It's been sold by the police to, like, pay for the care of the cats.
Yeah, out of all the things
killed.
to pay for the care of the cats.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe to help pay for the funeral. I could see that, but to help pay for the care.
Yeah, no, it was like there's this new law where, like, if you've committed a crime, the victim of the crime can, like, take your stuff to, like, you know, compensation. And Alex is like, well, the woman I attacked died. She doesn't need my money. And there's like, well, the cats, though. They needed to take care of the cats so they could find a place to keep it safe. So all of Alex's belongings were sold just to care for some cats, including his record player.
Yes. He was very sad about that. But
really looking forward to getting some tunes in his ears.
I don't want to spoil that one.
Yeah. So after some, you know, debate about whether Joe, you know, should leave or what, he's not leaving. His parents are like, well, we can't kick him out. We've got to, like, we've signed a 2-year contract with him. Alex kind of breaks down and cries, showing kind of the first real emotion other than, like...
Only at his own suffering, though.
That's true. That's very selfish emotion. It's like...
he's like, oh no, bad things are happening to me. Boo. Sorry.
Yeah, although again, like, he's a 17-year-old kid too.
Yeah.
So, like, he's found out that, like, his family's basically like, oh, hey, we're not terribly glad to see you out of prison, and no, you can't come stay here. Sorry, dude, you're kind of shit out of luck. Which, again, like, we can kind of understand where they're coming from, but you can also kind of empathize with Alex as a 17-year-old being essentially kicked out of his home by his parents and some stranger named Joe.
Who is like the same age as his parents, but like,
yeah,
acts
exactly.
Like their son. He's like, they've treated me like their own son, and he's like, you're about the same age as them.
So Alex is like, fine, you're never going to see me again, and leaves.
That's such a teenager thing to say.
Right? Yeah. Although, actually, for me, that's more like, 8 or 9.
Is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You and I must have had very different teenage years.
Oh, yeah. I remember trying to run away from home when I was like, I don't know, probably like 8 or something, and like just getting to the end of the block.
Why? Your parents are great.
I have no idea where I'm going to go, huh?
Your parents are great. Why would you run away from home?
I don't remember why. I probably wasn't allowed to do something.
Okay, yeah. So Alex runs away mad.
Yeah, and that takes us into chapter 2, where he heads back to the Crow of a Milk Bar.
There was one thing in chapter 1 that I wanted to mention.
Oh,
he does mention something about finding 2 shining clean syringes, which was interesting.
Ah, yeah. Was that was just on the street though, right?
That was on the street, but I did make a note of it because I think that was like the first real reference to hard drugs that wasn't in milk.
Yeah, and now that you mention that too, like when he talks about his trunk or his case of belongings that were sold, he does mention that there were syringes in there as well.
Oh, that's what I was talking. I think that's what I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Because he was listing off that he had drugs and he had alcohol and he had 2 good syringes and
yeah.
It does open up that door to wonder what other kind of shenanigans Alex was getting into in his youth
that he didn't talk about in the first part.
Yeah, because he only really saw like sort of 2 days of his life, right?
Right.
So leaving mom and dad's place, he heads off to the Corova Milk Bar, has himself some Milk Plus, and then he has this kind of a vision of. I wasn't following it at all, but it's like he started seeing like people turning into gods or God being there, and then other gods.
Well, no, first he saw this like this point of silver, and then it consumed the whole world. And
yeah. It started with the silver thing. Yeah,
and then God arrived, and yeah. It was pretty. He was flying pretty high.
But by the end of it, like everyone was looking at him and shaking their heads like they were very disappointed.
Well, he was also like he even mentioned that he was murmuring, like he was talking out loud while he was tripping, and not really making a lot of sense. He was like, I would say this and this, and yeah. So I think he was like probably making a scene. It'd be interesting to see how they played that in the movie.
I don't. Yeah, my gut feeling is he doesn't go back to the Corova Milk Bar in the movie, but
what? Okay,
could be wrong.
I hope you are.
But basically, at the end of the vision, he comes to the conclusion that he's going to kill himself.
Right.
Then he realizes that, like, if he even thinks about doing it with his knife,
he gets
the
sick.
idea of doing violence kicks in, the nausea reaction and everything else.
So he's got to come up with some soft, nice, gentle way to die.
Right. And because there's no internet,
he goes to the library.
He goes to the library.
Yeah.
Finds a medical book, is browsing through that, but it's just pictures of wounds, and that makes him feel yucky.
Yeah, I had a note about that, actually. And I had a note just before that, and I thought this was funny. So he's I don't know how the sentence where it comes from. Oh yeah, I can actually do that. I can click on it. Dude, Google Play Books is amazing. So so he says here, I'll give you just kind of the brief. Oh, that is a really long sentence. Holy shit. That might be a run-on sentence. You know, but we're not the grammar police.
We're not
the grammar police here. Yeah, that's not our job here. So that they could not really be of stone or bronze, really, and the eyes or glazes. So like we're at pretty much the end of this book, and he's like, you know what? Maybe I'll tell you what a couple of these words are. I'll just describe a couple of these.
Yeah, we'll just toss them in
He said
there.
glazes probably like 15 times in this book so far without any explanation, and he decides to do it in the third part. I thought that was funny. And I did have another note here. Right, so we're talking about when he looks at the photographs and he gets sick. I made a note here saying that, he's not going to be a terrible member of society. He's not going to hurt people. But he could also, in his current state, ever become a doctor or a surgeon.
Yeah,
either.
Cut his hand open.
Without getting violently ill, yeah.
Right.
But I thought that was interesting, like, we watch him go through the transformation through this mental bombardment, basically. And the attempt is to make him not want to hurt or murder or anything like that. But there's all these other consequences to that as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was interesting that, to be not averse to gore is probably something that people who are violent have, but also not being averse to gore is also something that, doctors and surgeons and healers have.
Yeah.
So
I think, and I don't know necessarily if this is something that Burgess intended, but I think this is something that happens in science a lot, is where, they discover something, or they discover a process, without necessarily much thought to what the overall consequence of that is.
Right. What's that famous line? It's like, we were too busy asking ourselves if we could. We didn't ask ourselves if we should. Or
yeah,
I think I butchered that really badly.
Well, and I don't know where that originates, but it comes to the idea that I think
it was Jurassic Park.
Probably, yeah. That seems like Jurassic Park.
So.
that famous science text, but it's that concept, and it's not just that we were too busy. It's that science isn't. It's not a question science is interested in asking. Should or shouldn't has nothing to do with science. It's just, can we? Right? And so they figured out this way where they could do something, which is stop someone from breaking the law.
Right.
Without giving much thought to long-term consequences. And partly because I think this is literally the first time that they have done this process on someone and then put them back out into the world.
Right. I did find the quote. It is from Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
And it's
probably from
Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum, yeah.
Yeah. But your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could that they didn't stop to think if they should.
So he can't find out how to kill himself in the medical book, so he turns to the Bible for comfort,
right?
Like he did in prison.
But all I found was smiting 70 times and 7 a lot, and a lot of Jews cursing and tall chalking each other. That's my favorite explanation of the Bible to date, by the way.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
And eventually he just starts sort of shouting about how he's frustrated, how he wants to kill himself, and how miserable he is. And there's a guy sitting next to him who's like repeatedly telling him to shush. And then there's somebody else like across the table from him who's like asking him what's wrong. After a few more shouts, the guy who's shushing him looks up from his book and recognizes Alex.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the guy we encountered way back in part 1 who had a bunch of books that Alex ripped apart and then ripped the guy's clothes off and beat the shit out of him. And this guy...
Because fuck that guy.
Because fuck that guy. Well, now it's about to be fuck Alex.
Yeah.
Because this guy is like, not only does he recognize Alex, it's like, this is the guy who like destroyed these rare gemology books or something. Because apparently that's what he had. These books that you couldn't even get copies of anymore. And there are many a patron in the library who were like, oh, that guy.
Like he tells that story every day when he goes to the library. He's like, I used to have these beautiful books on gemology.
Well, it wasn't him. They were library books.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
He had taken them from the library. And that's why all of the library patrons are mad about it. Because
they couldn't get the books either. Yeah.
Right. Nobody can. These are rare books that have been destroyed by Alex. Now we've got the rising of the library people to take out
Revenge of the Nerds.
So he's suddenly attacked by like what seemed like from his description, like a bunch of like 60 or 70-year-old men.
The revenge of the geriatric nerds.
The revenge of the geriatrics. And of course, Alex can't do anything to defend himself. One of the librarians, kind of sees what's going on and comes back and is like, well, if you guys don't settle down, I'm going to have to call the police. To which Alex is like, please, please. And they do. And eventually the police kind of arrive, and Alex manages to kind of pull himself away from the squad of oldies. Chapter 3 opens with the police kind of beating on the old guys, helping Alex get away. But after a moment, the police that have arrived to help Alex also recognize him.
Which is going to be a recurring theme.
It is. It is going to be a recurring theme. What is that book? Like this is Alex's no good, very bad day or something.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's Dim and Billy Boy.
Billy Boy. I know Billy Boy was the droog with the other Malchiks, right?
Yeah, he was the one that they got in a fight with. After Billy Boy was the one that was raping the 10-year-old girl.
Right, and he was the one that Alex cut all up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Billy Boy got away, I think. It was one of Billy Boy's droogs that Alex cut up there and left bleeding on the floor.
Oh, okay.
So they decide that they're going to have some fun with Alex.
What was the word they used? Yeah, I don't remember. But they basically drive him out to the middle of nowhere. They decide not to take him into the station or anything. They drive him out to the middle of nowhere and have their way beating him up. Now, okay, the way that one was worded, I was a little confused at first. I thought that maybe they were having their way with him in a different way.
Like raping
first,
him, you mean?
Yeah,
or?
at first, like just the way that whole series of events was worded, I was like, oh, okay, what's happening here? The driver is watching them do what now? But then they say they get their last couple of tall chalks on, which I know is a hit now. So I was like, okay, yeah, they're beating the shit out of him. But yeah, at first, you weren't confused there?
I wasn't, no.
Oh, it's just me? Am I the only brain that went there?
Well, I mean, it's entirely possible, like, because half the time when you're reading this book, you don't know exactly what's happening because of the language. Yeah. It's
funny. It's funny that the weird language was a thing that brought it back home to me. It's like, okay, they're beating him up. They're tall chalking.
They're tall chalking.
Yeah, I know what that is.
They are.
Yeah,
it's none of this in out. And then they just abandoned him in the middle of nowhere.
In the freezing rain, which I gotta say, if there ever was a time I felt sympathy for Alex, it was this moment, because freezing rain is the shits.
Yeah. And I think, like, this has just been a bad day. Like, one thing, to have to defend yourself against the geriatrics.
And not being able to.
And in a way, you could argue that he brought that one on himself by, like, fucking with that guy before.
Yeah.
And I guess, I mean, he did fuck with Billy Boy, and he was mean to Dim, but that felt a little bit, I guess he cut up Dim's hand, too. Never mind. Maybe I don't have...
Well, no, he definitely... But for those assholes to be cops...
Yeah.
I mean, it would be as bad as Alex being a cop, basically.
Yeah, totally.
Like, they're fucking assholes.
And clearly, that's a path that he could have taken had he not ended up in jail, because those guys ended up as cops.
Yeah, they were, yeah. Sorry.
So,
I just said a bunch of, yeah.
So, staggering around the freezing rain, looking for a place to be safe, looking for home is what he keeps thinking. And this is where I think I think I understand now why Burgess made a big point of in part 1 when he goes out to the writer's house. He made a real big deal about how the word home was outside of that house, and I was like, I don't know, why is that there? It's just like, how many people put home outside of their house? Like, I could see a sign that said like "Home Sweet Home" or
not just
Live,
straight
Laugh,
up,
Love, or just not home,
Eat, Pray,
like
Love.
a label. But Alex is out looking for home, and he stumbles across this building that has the label "Home" on it. And
now I wonder if that was something that he meant to do. Did he write "Home" in the first part and then call back to it, knowing he was going to do that, or was he like trying to find a way to connect his struggle or his look for a place, and then he went back and wrote that there was "Home" written?
I mean, I don't know what the order of it would have been, but I think certainly it was brought up early on so that it would be referenced at the end, in connection with Alex looking for home as someplace safe to be. He knocks on the door. Guy answers the door. At some point, and I can't remember exactly when this happened because I don't have notes anymore. I just sort of stopped taking notes towards the end of the book. But this guy brings Alex in to help him out, warms him up, gives him some food. And Alex realizes that it's the writer who he assaulted in part 1.
The writer who was writing A Clockwork Orange.
A Clockwork Orange, yes. But also, the writer recognizes Alex, not initially as the guy who assaulted him, but as the guy who went through the Ludovico technique.
Yeah.
Because the writer is sort of one of these, it seems like there's like a very sort of right-wing government in place in the story, and the writer is more of a left-wing person. He thinks this whole Ludovico technique is wrong. He thinks the way that the government is like stomping down on people's rights in order to try to get crime under control is wrong. And he wants to try to help Alex, or use Alex, depending on your point of view, to fight back against the government's current strategy towards crime prevention. So he does feel sympathy for Alex's condition and wants to try to, make sure it doesn't happen to anybody else.
And he is very, very kind to Alex. He brings him in,
very
gets
kind.
some chai, or gives him some chai.
Yeah. Feeds him,
gives him a bed.
Yeah. And even like when Alex and through this chapter, it's almost the first time that we've seen Alex choosing to do good things. Because remember Alex like offering to do the dishes. Mm-hmm. Just these little things that are kind of ordinary for people. Like if you've been brought in by someone and fed, you would probably offer, hey, can I do the dishes for you? You don't have to do that. Let me help. And it's interesting that I don't remember if the book made a distinction that he was doing those things for selfish reasons or if he really was trying to do something good.
I think he really did appreciate the kindness.
That was the sense I got too.
I think that he understood that this person didn't have to do any of this for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see that.
So I think this gets us to the end of the 4th chapter.
Are we there already?
Maybe not. Maybe the end of the 3rd. No, we must be.
Must be, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So next chapter, Alex wakes up, still at the guy's place. Tries to find out who he is, so he pokes around his rooms a little bit, finds a copy of the A Clockwork Orange book, and finds that his name it's F. Alexander, right? Mm-hmm. Which Alex notes is another Alex. Shortly after that, F. Alexander brings in a bunch of his sort of leftist friends.
It almost seems like they've got this like underground plan to thwart the government or something. Like they're in the like they have like a media outlet or something, and they're trying to get the government out.
It does seem like they're like he's got a group of friends who are actively trying to work against the government.
Yeah, okay, sorry, not overthrow the government. They're not like violent. They're just
No.
They're trying to get support from the people to oust the current government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And F. Alexander obviously has this idea to use Alex towards that, and so he brings these people in to be like, this is that kid who went through this process. This is how they fucked him up. How can we utilize this? And as they're talking, Alex starts making some slips of his language. At first, it's just a couple of NADSAT phrases that he drops that F. Alexander recognizes. And then, of course, Alex is like, oh, shit, that's maybe something I said when I insulted him.
And raped his wife. Oh, yeah, we didn't talk about the fact that his wife died.
Yes.
Afterwards.
Yes, that's true. That's actually a really, really, really important element of this part of the book, yeah. So, yeah, F. Alexander's wife died.
Did they really explain why? Like, was it injuries or was it like just died of like the stress or? I don't know if they really explained that.
Yeah, I got the sense that it was from the trauma of it. Whether that means, like you said, the injuries, whether like she herself couldn't handle the memory of the experience and took her own life.
Right. Yeah.
But it seemed like at least he was blaming the trauma of the event. And one of the things he talked about is like how difficult it was for him to live there where they had lived together, but how he also didn't want to go someplace that would be without her memory.
Right.
Which is, here's this guy who's, in a way, actively torturing himself every day by remaining in this house where his wife died, but needing to do that because otherwise it's like she's not around at all. But it definitely paints this picture of a guy who is still traumatized by what happened the night that Alex attacked, as well as the aftermath of that.
And I think he started maybe suspecting Alex when he mentioned that he had heard of A Clockwork Orange.
So when that came up, my first thought was, okay, this is when Alex gets found out.
Yeah.
Because my suspicion was that the author had never published A Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
I don't think he was suspicious. Maybe he was. I could see that being an argument. But I think he would be, I don't know. I feel like he would be less verbal about his increasing suspicions in this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
If he had started to get suspicious after the mention of A Clockwork Orange, I don't think he would have been like, those words seem familiar to me.
Right.
Although, it also might be that that's the only way that Burgess could communicate that the author was figuring it out, because, of course, we only ever see the story from Alex's perspective.
Yeah.
But yeah, gradually he begins to kind of figure out that Alex is the one who attacked him. I think it starts to solidify after Alex calls someone dim. And that triggers F. Alexander's memory of the guy called Dim, who had been with Alex when they attacked. Yeah. Eventually, I think, is it this night or... Because basically at the end of this chapter, or in the beginning of the next chapter, they send Alex off to a new place. They're supposedly going to take care of him.
Mm-hmm.
Until they can sort of use his story to help undermine the government. And F. Alexander sends him off with a few of his friends, and they drive him out to this apartment. When they get there, the people that are with Alex just sort of subtly ask Alex,
yeah,
are you the one that attacked him? It's fine. It won't go any further than us.
And I feel like F. Alexander asked them to ask him that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I felt like he had pieced some of the pieces together, and he was like fairly certain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they were absolutely lying when they said it wouldn't get back to him.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Right? But at this point, Alex is kind of in their hands, and I don't know, like,
he's gullible.
He's gullible, but is this also maybe like an attempt to also do something good by fessing up to it? And I mean, he fesses up to it and also says, like, he's paid, like he did his time in prison, and then he did the Ludovico technique, like, and that technically was part of his sentence.
Yeah, but he never did get arrested for what he did to that man.
Oh, yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a good point.
He got arrested for only the one thing, which was
the cat lady.
Killing the cat lady. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's true. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, they tell him that they're going to take care of him, and that he's in good hands, and that he's going to make a difference, and he gets the feeling like, I think he does feel like he's going to be kind of held there.
Oh, I didn't think that. Yeah, I got the sense that that he felt safe in a way, that, like, and again, he spends a lot of time talking about, like, the where he's staying. Like he made reference to, like, how badly cramped the prison cell was and how big an upgrade it was when he got to the place where they were going to do the Ludovico technique on him. Again, this place is small, with 2 bedrooms, but then also sort of just a single kind of living area. But again, I got the sense that he was like, this is going to be my place. This is where I'm going to be safe. And I'm going to help these guys, bring down the government and make sure that, not bring down the government, but you know what I mean? Like, undermine the government, make sure they can't do this to somebody else.
Yeah, I see. You did the same. I was like, bring down the government. But it's like, no, they're just trying to undermine it. Yeah.
Sorry, I have armed insurrection in my head. So yeah, he does go and lie down. Has a lovely little sleepy weep.
Sleepy.
And then wakes up to some music playing.
Which normally would have been a beautiful thing for Alex, but this time,
real horror show.
not so much.
Yes, because of course he cannot handle music anymore without feeling nauseous and getting a pain in the Gulliver. All of which F. Alexander knows because he's read the articles about Alex.
Yeah.
And that is who is behind the musical assault. Alex finds he's locked into the apartment, can't get out.
Well, locked in his room. Locked in his room.
Is it just the room?
Yeah, he's locked
That's
in
fair.
his room, yeah.
Yeah.
It's locked from the outside. He can't open it.
Yeah. Oh, no, but I seem to recall him like looking at, there were a couple of brochures on the table I thought he looked at.
No, that wasn't, that was a different time.
No, because that's what inspires him to jump out the window. Yeah, so, what I videoed, he looks down at the table, I think. What I videoed was the Slovo death on the cover of a like pamphlet, even though it was only death to the government. And like it was fate, there was another like Malenki booklet, which had an open window on the cover, and it said, "Open the window to fresh air, fresh ideas, a new way of living." And that's what inspires him to jump out the window, is seeing the window on the pamphlet wide open as he's listening to this music.
Right. Okay. So he's just locked in. He's locked in. Yeah. Okay.
I think he's locked in the apartment.
Gotcha.
I could be wrong. Like, it could be that those pamphlets were in his room too. It really doesn't matter.
No, it does. We have to be perfect.
It does. We have to be.
Everything has to
All
be
right.
absolutely correct all the time.
All right. Email us if you are. Let us know if you're on Team Bedroom or Team Apartment. Email us your thoughts. We will read them maybe on the live episode. That's badthingshappen@gmail.com. So he leaps out the window and
He doesn't die.
sucks at killing himself.
He wants to die, but he doesn't die.
Yeah.
But he bangs himself up pretty damn good.
Yep. And ends up in the hospital.
No, I don't think he was in a hospital. He was in some room somewhere. He even mentions that
Well, I guess that's
he
true.
thought he woke up because he had like there was like the blood in an IV going into him, or was it blood or fluids? I don't know, one or the other. And
it was Crovey.
This Crovey, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he does mention that at first he thinks he's in a hospital, but then he realizes that he's not, and he has a flashback to when he was a kid, and apparently he was sick as a kid, and he spent some time in the hospital.
Yeah, diphtheria or something.
Yeah. Which maybe that's why his parents were like so tiptoey around him.
Because they thought he still had diphtheria?
No, because they almost lost their little boy, so
Maybe, yeah. That's a
Yeah.
good point.
what is diphtheria? That is a life-threatening illness, isn't it?
I don't know.
All
I
right.
should have Googled that too, eh?
Diphtheria. I feel like that's something you die of on the Oregon Trail.
That's dysentery.
I'm pretty sure diphtherias are too. It's a serious infection caused by strains of bacteria called Corynebacterium. Corynebacterium? Diphtheriae. I know how to say these
Okay.
words. That make toxins, poison.
It is also known as the Klebs-Loeffler bacillus.
Oh, indeed. Indeed. CDC recommends vaccines for infants, children, teens, and adults to prevent diphtheria. Can lead to difficult breathing, heart failure, paralysis, and even death.
That sounds all pretty bad.
None of those things sound great.
No, they don't. So yeah, you're right. It's serious. I think you're right. He was probably in some kind of a government facility, because the government is definitely trying to clamp down on all of the negative, material that's coming out around the Ludovico technique.
Yeah, because that's the sense that I got. Because he was in this bed for quite some time, and I think that exactly what F. Alexander and all of his cohorts said they were going to do, they did. And yeah, sorry, continue.
Well, so here's what I think is interesting is I think that once F. Alexander figured out who Alex was, his plan was to drive Alex nuts to the point where he killed himself.
Yeah.
And that his death following the Ludovico technique would have looked so bad on the government,
Yeah.
right? but he didn't die. And so now the government...
He couldn't do the one thing that F. Alexander and himself wanted to do.
See, and now the government is working with him. They're like promising him a job once he gets better. They've done brain surgery on him to get rid of what the Ludovico technique did. I have two reasons for thinking that he had brain surgery, and one of them is pretty much what I would say the evidence is. So, like, he asks at one point if he did have, if they messed with his brain, and the nurse kind of is like, whatever they did, it was good for you or whatever. But there's a reference to, like, later on, after the bandages are off his head and his hair is growing back.
Right.
They don't shave your head unless you're getting brain surgery.
Oh, okay.
Really.
Okay. No, yeah, I understand.
So whether or not, the brain surgery was initially to deal with damage that was done when he jumped, or whether the whole purpose was to, like, reverse the Ludovico technique, there was definitely some brain surgery that's happened. Now, there is a point in this chapter where some doctors come in with, like, flashcards of, like, horrible, violent crime stuff on them and show them to Alex to, like, what's this? What's this? And he's answering questions and he feels just fine, so he's been cured of whatever they did to him.
And when he talks to his parents, it almost seems like he's much worse.
Oh, that scene. Yes.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. So his parents come in. They're all glad to see him. They're all sorry about everything that happened. They've kicked Joe out.
Yeah, it's not just that they're glad to see him. They're coming back like a dog who just shit in the corner. And they're like, oh, God, please. Because I think, to an extent, like, they're feeling somewhat responsible for his attempt to kill himself.
Right. And I think, and that also might tie back to the diphtheria thing a little bit too, right? Like, they almost lost their boy again.
Yeah. And here he is in another, if not hospital, but at least a medical environment that's going to, bring that memory back.
And then he even says to his dad, he's like, if I might come back. I'm not saying I'm coming back. I might come back, but if I do, things are going to be different. Yeah. You're going to know who's in charge. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like, holy shit.
But the funny thing about Joe here, though, too, is like, Alex is like, well, what happens to Joe? It's like, Joe got the shit beat out of him by the cops. Just waiting around to, like, meet a girl is like, I got every right to be here. And they're like, no, you don't. And they beat the shit out of him. So Joe had to go home to recover, had to give his job over to somebody else. So they didn't have a renter in their room anymore. Everything kind of is turning up Alex.
Everything does turn up Alex at the end.
Which is a bit crazy. Until, well...
I wouldn't even say until. I think it was all pretty much going his way.
I guess.
Like, he's got like, his job is dealing with music for the government, for archives.
Yep.
And he gets paid good for it. He's got a new gang of Malchiks.
Yep.
And he's the leader, which is what he always wanted to be. He's the oldest. Everybody looks up to him. That's what he always wanted.
So here we are at chapter 7.
Yeah.
Which is the infamous chapter 7. Here's the interesting thing about this chapter. When this book was first published in the United States, it did not contain chapter 7.
Wait, what?
When A Clockwork Orange was first published in the United States, chapter 7 wasn't part of the book. It ended at chapter 6. Which is how the movie ends.
Okay, why?
There's some dispute about why. The author apparently said that the publisher didn't want to put it in because they thought it was, like, too optimistic. The publisher later claimed that the author didn't want to put it in. No one is claiming to be responsible for it.
No, he did it. He did it.
But, and that's why the movie is the way it is, because that's the version of the book that Stanley Kubrick read, and he was a good way through the production of the film before even discovering that there was a final chapter. And at no point did he consider using it. And I'm not a fan of the last chapter. And I'll tell you why. It's not so much the content of it itself. It's that it shouldn't be chapter 7 of part 3. It should be an epilogue.
Okay, so you're so hold on, let me get this right. You're not upset that the chapter exists. You're just upset that it's not an epilogue.
He breaks his own structure.
Right.
Chapter 1 of part 1, part 2, and 3 all start with what's it going to be then, A?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen in any chapter 7 until this one. And it breaks his own established structure.
What a prick.
If he'd had a proper chapter 7, well, it's also the fact that nothing that happens in this chapter connects with anything else that happens in part 3. It should be its own independent thing. It should be an epilogue.
Yeah, I can see that. But also,
it doesn't
that
work
would break up with
as,
the 3 parts of 7 chapters.
Well, then
21.
he was wrong to do that. Then he was wrong to do it that way.
Shots fired.
Shots fired.
Shots fired. Okay. Okay.
I also kind of agree with supposedly the it's like, so basically what happens in chapter 7 of part 3 is Alex, as you said, he's got a good job at the government. He's got a new gang of droogs. It opens very much like the very first chapter where they're sitting at the Corova Milk Bar, getting ready for a night of shenanigans. They go out to like get up for some horror show criminality, and Alex is like, I'm not really into this. And then he wanders around for a while, like trying to.
Well, he sends all his droogs off to do their own thing, and he wants to be on his audio.
And this is, I don't know, this struck me as really weird. First, they go like beat some people up, and then they go to the bar that they regularly go to, and so one of the droogs is like, drinks for everyone, and Alex is like, well, hang on, I don't know if I want to buy drinks for everybody. This is my money that I worked hard for. I don't want to spend it on these people. So, like, already Alex is turning into a capitalist. And then, he sends his droogs on their way. And what was interesting about that is it was like they were planning to do something that night. And one of them was like, oh, well, we'll wait for you till tomorrow to do it. And Alex is like, nah, do it tonight. I'm not really, like, do what you got to do. And then he goes wandering around, kind of soul searching. Ends up going somewhere for tea and bumps into Pete,
the quiet one,
his old droog, who's married now to a girl named Georgina, who
giggles a lot,
and is entertained by the way Alex speaks. I like how she asked him, "Did you used to talk like that?" And it's, Alex is like, how can you be married? You're so young. And Pete's like, well, I'm 20. Which is, still pretty young, I'm going to say.
Maybe not so much in the 60s. Like, I feel like the difference between 15 and 20, it's still, that's a big gap. But I think a lot of people in the 60s when they were 20, they were settling down.
Yeah, for sure. And from this conversation, all of a sudden, Alex is like, should I be settling down? And by the end of it, he's like imagining having a baby.
Well, no, I think he was thinking about it before because he had a picture of a baby in his pocket at the bar, which he accidentally drops out. Fun of. Yeah, he actually drops the picture when he's pulling money out of his pocket to pay for drinks for everybody. And everybody's making fun of him, and he rips it up kind of like, I was just... But it seems like this is something that's been weighing on him for a little while.
I just feel like it's way too much of a change too fast in the narrative. I mean, I understand that, by this chapter, we've jumped forward about a year from the last chapter. Mm-hmm. But we're supposed to go from, at the end of chapter 6, Alex is like, he's super excited to be able to go out and murder and rape and do all this kind of shit again. And now one chapter later, he's out, beating people up, but we're also supposed to be accepting that he's in the back of his mind. He's like, yeah, but should I settle down? And I don't think it's earned. I don't think that kind of character jump is earned. I think it would have worked better as an epilogue. I still don't think it would have worked great.
Okay.
Because I think there's and I don't know if I've read this in an interview with Anthony Burgess or like sort of a take on the book, but I feel like I've read that the intent is that this kind of criminality and antisocial behavior is something that people inevitably just grow out of, and I don't agree with that take. I don't think that's a correct way of viewing the world. I'm sure in some cases it is, and may even be the case in the majority of situations where you've got teens who are acting out that eventually they're like, you know what, I'm too old for this.
I think like the way that I've tried to take any lesson in this book has been to pull from either side and just bring it a little more to the middle. Right? Like everything that they're trying to do to make society a better place, you know, the government, I think really you take that hard left and you pull that to the middle. Actually hard right, I guess, pull it to the middle. You take this full free-for-all violence, ultra-violence, rape, and murder, you pull that into the middle, and if you actually look at some of the things that are touched on, I think there's a little bit more humanity there. I think he's purposely pushed things to the extremes on either side.
I think so, yeah. This is definitely a book of extremes.
Absolutely. Yeah, there is really no middle ground in this book. But I think if you bring it into the middle and kind of the overall feeling that I got from the book was that we're not the mistakes that we've made, but we are accountable to the mistakes that we've made. And we do have the ability to change. And that's the sense I got from the last chapter. But obviously, you know, like you say, if someone's out murdering and, you know, beating people up and raping people, you know, you're not gonna, it's not, I don't know. I'm not trying to say that they're redeemable or anything like that. But I do like to think that people change. I do like to think that people have the capacity for change.
Well, and obviously, I think to an extent, the point there in that last chapter too is that Alex made the choice to change. It wasn't forced upon him.
That's and the freedom of choice. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. We're at the end.
We're at the end. I mean, we still have to watch the movie and then we'll do the live wrap up. But yeah.
Yep, for sure. We're at the end of part 3. I guess we kind of try to, at this point, you know, if we talk about final thoughts of the book, it's about the book as a whole. So let's hold off on that maybe until we do the live episode.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to watching the movie and catching differences, similarities. Hang on. I got to go back to my notes because
okay.
If you've made it this far, if you've been listening, still, thank you for being here.
Also, what's wrong with you?
We're going to treat you to our final episode of What the Fuck Is He Saying, which we forgot to do at the beginning of this episode.
Oh, yes. I was going to say we should do that. Okay.
Yeah. I have another bunch. I got like 7 here.
I got a few as well.
All right. Okay. I got 2 I want to kind of do back to back.
Okay.
One is Ludies.
Okay.
Do you have any guesses about what that might be?
I don't have that written down. Ludies. Spell it for me.
Lewdies.
Ludies. Well, that would be pornography, wouldn't it?
No. I originally thought it was ladies.
Okay.
But then I saw it being used in ways that seemed to refer just to sort of general people.
Oh, okay. So it's like people.
Yeah. And the other one I have is Malchik.
Malchik. Yeah. No, I know what that one is.
Yeah.
That's like a young man.
Yeah. Yeah. So originally I had Ludies as ladies and Malchik as man. I think they might be inseparable. I think they might refer to people in general, but I'm not sure.
Malchiks. I've only ever heard him use Malchik to describe a male, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I sat in a dark corner to eat and peat. So I'm assuming peat means drink.
Must be, yeah.
Let's see what else I got.
I remember seeing that word come up, but I wasn't paying attention to the context of it.
Oh, maybe think. I had a note here that it might be think.
Oh, yeah, that might make sense.
Yeah. Klooch. Klootch.
Nope, don't remember that
I
one.
believe that is a key.
Okay.
I took out of my Carmen the little klooch that I had for opening up, but I very firmly fitted the klooch into the lock and turn. So yeah, key.
That would totally be a key. How about Malenki?
Belenki, little.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now Nadsat. I thought that was
Yes.
teenager.
Nadsat's the name of their language.
I know it's the name of the language, but I also think because it says right here.
It's the word for the Russian suffix of teen.
Yeah.
So like the way that we would say 17,
yeah.
Nadsat is that suffix, supposedly.
Yeah. So it says, but there was no Andy there now, brothers, only a scream and a creech of Nadsat. Teenage, that is. Or sorry, a creech of Nadsat, teenage, that is, Malchiks. And Ptitsas. Slooshying some new horrible pop song. There was a lot of slang in that one. What else you got?
I have Slovo.
Slovo. Words, sentence, speak.
Yes.
Yeah. I've got Nagoy.
Don't remember.
Naked.
Okay. One that came up, I think, just in part 3, Emias.
Oh, I don't remember that one.
Name.
Oh, okay.
It came up a lot when F. Alexander had brought his people over.
Right.
And, yeah.
Cluve. Cluve.
Oh, don't know.
I thought it might be a nose. I'll read it in a sentence here. And he launched a Bolshi Tolchuk right on my cluve.
Yep, that makes sense.
Got any more?
Zubies.
Zubies. I don't know what zubies are.
Teeth.
Oh, okay. Pletchos. Pletchoes.
Oh, that's not clothing related, is it?
I don't think so. I think it's shoulders. So he says, this kind of Vec put his rookers around my pletchos.
Okay.
And pulled me into this room.
Sure.
So
okay.
Yeah, I thought it was shoulders shoulders, I think.
That makes sense. Okay, I have one more.
Sure.
Iddied.
Nothing.
Yeah. I think it's hurried.
Oh, okay.
But it's definitely something like in relation to
on my
movement.
Audinaki?
Could be, yeah. I iddied up the stairs. I iddied down the stairs.
Oh, okay.
It's about movement. I'm just out there guessing that it's hurried.
That
it
makes
could have been
sense. That makes
snuck.
sense.
It could have been stomped, but it has to do with a type of movement.
I think that makes sense. I think hurried is a good translation.
Yeah. Anything else from you?
Yeah, no, I don't have any more words, but I do just have a couple more points that I want to make while I'm looking at my notes here. There was a line in this book that just hit a little different than the rest. F. Alexander speaks of what they did to Alex as the thin end of the wedge. I thought that was a very powerful analogy.
Totally.
I really, as soon as I read that, that stuck out to me. Like that was like,
yep.
It just hit different. And just we kind of glazed over the transition from, like they did the brain surgery, but he's given something to sign, and he says, not knowing what I was signing, and not, oh my brothers, caring either. And I said, no, not again, Alex, because that's
That's what got him into this whole mess, right? That's a good point.
So I was expecting things to get possibly worse for him at this point.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that everything was going to come out smelling like roses for him. Yeah, so I wanted to make a note of that. And his buddy...
If there's one lesson that we should all take away from A Clockwork Orange, is that always read before signing.
Get a lawyer.
Get a lawyer
Get a
to look
lawyer.
at your contracts for you.
And then there was one other thing, just another point. I thought it was funny because every once in a while he'll throw in, like, oh, whatever that means, right? Just to kind of jab at you for having to put up with his bullshit. But he talks about when he meets his buddies Pete, and Pete says he's going to Greg's house, and he says he's going to Greg's, whoever that is.
Right.
I just thought that was funny.
I think though there's now that you mentioned the second time it comes up, there's like a feeling of not being included. I think that Alex is kind of lashing out at there, right? Like when he mentions it in when he's in prison and the guy uses a phrase or a word, he's like, whatever that means.
It's because he didn't know what it was.
Yes, and it's in doing so, he's not included in that group.
Right.
And much like with Greg, that's not something he's included in.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
But that's interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching the movie, going over a few more things, and doing the live episodes. So, I think I've said everything I need to say right now.
One more question then,
Sure.
before we sign off. Do you think anybody needs a sequel to A Clockwork Orange?
No.
Should we have like a Clockwork Watermelon?
No.
Pick up 20 years later, see how Alex is doing.
A Clockwork Apple? No.
His droogs come back wanting to do one last heist.
No.
Okay.
I honestly don't think so.
I don't think so either, but just the way that it ends with that last chapter about Alex like considering doing good, it just kind of rattled in my head this possibility of like, what is Alex like 20 years later or 40 years later? And is there anything there? Probably not.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think the author was trying to
build a cinematic universe now.
Yeah. I've got another point I want to make, but I'll make that on the live wrap up. I gotta save some material for that.
Yeah, exactly. Save all your good material. All right, that brings this episode to a close as always. Thanks for listening. We got a website. It's blahblahblahmedia.com. You can find all kinds of links to all of our other stuff there, as well as embedded players for this podcast. And another one that I do called Half Cut Conspiracies. If you like what we're doing and want to support us, you can sponsor us on Patreon. It's patreon.com/blahblahblahmedia. You can also buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/blahblahblah. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/
Band Things Happen.
Yeah, and we're email us bandthingshappen@gmail.com. Remember, tell us if you are team bedroom or team apartment. For the end of chapter 5, was Alex trapped in his bedroom or was Alex trapped in his apartment? We want to hear your hot takes. That's it. I think we've covered everything.
Yeah.
My name is Todd Sullivan.
And my name is Oren Barter.
You've been listening to When Bad Things Happen to Good People. Until next time.
Go read a fucking book, y'all.